Okay, Taliesin, shit is getting real. It looks like Teldrassil is about to fall to the Horde. And look, I don't want to be defeatist or anything, but they've got flaming catapult things, and we never quite got around to having those sprinklers installed in Darnassus like we promised we would.
Yeah, I know, we are the worst landlords. But don't worry though, Evitel, because I know just the people who can help. Follow me. Velen, quickly! Teldrassil's under attack! It's proper serious! It's time to unleash the might of the Vindicar.
The Vindicar? Oh, that won't be possible, I'm afraid.
What do you mean? The Vindicar is the only air-to-surface tactical nuclear assault aircraft on the planet, and it's on our side. We could end this war before it even began.
Oh, well, you know, I'm sure you'll be fine.
No, we won't be fine. They've got huge flaming catapult things. Our tree is made of wood. Just give us the keys before it's too late.
Yeah, but, you know, it's just got a new paint job, and I really don't want it to get scratched. And actually, now I think about it, I'm not even sure I remember to fill the tank. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it hasn't even got any fuel in it right now, you know?
Are you seriously not going to send the Vindicar to help after we saved your planet?
Well, we kind of destroyed his planet a bit and then blasted it back through space to the other side of the universe. Oh, and we killed his Naru too.
Yeah, but Velen, mate, come on.
Forget it, Taliesin. He's obviously not going to help. Let's head back to Teldrassil. I'm sure Sylvanas isn't going to do anything stupid, and we can sort this out like adults.
Yeah, okay. Well, see you, Velen, I guess.
Knowledge is power.
Hello everyone, and welcome back to another Wondrous Wisdomshow, and well done, because you made it to the end of this week, which honestly at one point back there didn't look entirely certain was actually going to happen, because the last 7 days have been so full of drama and controversy and tears and anger and blood and flames and salt, so much salt. And at the very last, redemption, because yes, despite all of the trauma in getting here, this is a story with a happy ending, and that happy ending is the surprise, without warning, Old Soldier cinematic starring none other than Zappy Boy himself. Oh, and Saurfang, obviously. And I really want to talk about this straight away at the beginning of the show, partly because it's still new and fresh, but also because it's easily one of the best cinematics that Blizzard have ever produced, certainly for World of Warcraft, and we will talk about it. We're going to do a proper Taliesin talk style analysis on it. That's why this episode is so ungodly long, but we can't start with it, because to really appreciate Old Soldier and what it represents and the role it plays in the news this week, to really tell this story, we have to start from a little bit further back. And the start this week of Chapter 2 of the Battle for Azeroth pre-patch event, The War of Thorns, and its climax. After a short quest line showing Saurfang's forces breaking through from the north and overrunning the Nightelves defenders, which actually felt really intense and desperate in a way that Chapter 1 just didn't. Especially a flicker of hope, which saw Alliance players running around the burning city trying to save 1,000 citizens on an impossibly short timer, which was a beautifully tragic moment and actually made me feel really quite emotional, as did saying goodbye to the priestesses as we made our escape. Not only does my old favourite Astari Starseeker nobly stick to her post and sacrifice herself with her beloved temple, even with all of this carnage going on around her, she's still willing to let me queue for the proving grounds if I want to. Now that is bravery. But of course the quests weren't the main attraction here, because Blizzard finally answered the burning question that the community have been asking ever since those images were released way back in November. Seriously though, who sets fire to the tree though? And at long last, all was revealed in the form of the second Warbringers animation, which was also the official in-game cinematic. It wasn't an old god, it wasn't a dastardly trick from Genn or Jaina or Rathian, it wasn't Scorched Earth from Anduin or even Malfurion's unattended hair straighteners. His hair is so straight. No, the world tree burned down because Sylvanas said,
"Burn it. Burn it!"
And so they did. Now of course, as twists go, this is about as unexpected as who kills all the guys in John Wick 3. It's John Wick. It turns out that the leader of the army who was heading to Teldrassil specifically to drive the Alliance off of the continent, kill their leader and control the Azerite is also the one that ordered the burning of the city. Who knew? After months of speculation, we had an objectively beautiful animation and a huge reveal with massive lore implications to both sides in the conflict going forward. And what better place to discuss these seismic new happenings than the forums, where the player base gathered en masse to digest what they'd just seen, really let this first part of the prologue of the story sink in and calmly share their opinions on where they thought the writing team over the next 2 years would take this narrative that we now only just found ourselves at the very beginning of, and no, it was a shit show. Obviously. Fucking lol, what a boring fisting of a narrative. Sounds like Blizzard decided to hire some crazy cows instead of humans to write the story of a BFA. They've utterly fished Sylvanas with some of the most boring one-note writing that I have ever seen. Sylvanas is supposed to be chaotic evil, not chaotic stupid. Just lazy writing. I've seen grade schoolers come up with better stuff than this. After this Warbringer, I think Horde deserves a full refund on BFA purchases. Retcon everything after Wrath. We've already got a proper analysis of this cinematic on this channel, so here, I just want to have a look at its aftermath. And yes, I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, but Taliesin, it will now be impossible to look at many of these criticisms without the hindsight that the release of the Collector's Edition novellas and Old Soldier in the days afterwards has given us. And you're absolutely right, of course, but let's try anyway. Because the massive backlash over this ranged from the frustrated to the confused to the flat out actually disgusting, with personal harassment of writers on social media. And I have to say that much of it was criticism that I largely disagreed with then, and still do, even more so now with the hindsight of... Okay, sorry, we said we wouldn't do that. So firstly, the morally grey question. Leaving aside the fact that Ian never said that Sylvanas herself was morally grey, just the world we inhabit on Azeroth, there seems to be some confusion among the player base over what the term even means. So here's what it doesn't mean. Grey does not mean justifiable. It doesn't mean balanced. Morally grey does not mean that every bad thing that someone does has a good reason. It doesn't mean that for every bad thing someone does on one side, the other side is also kind of to blame. If you are finding yourself upset because you don't understand someone's motives straight away, then guess what? You are upset because it is morally grey, not because it isn't. If the actions of your leaders make you feel uncomfortable and leave you looking around nervously to see if anyone else on your side feels as bad about it as you do, that's morally grey. If there was a really good reason for it, that would be morally fine. And then there's the character question. If you think that Sylvanas is somehow acting out of character by destroying Teldrassil, then I'm not really sure you've been paying attention for the last 7 or 8 years, because she's literally done this before. When she invaded Gilneas and used the Blight on its population against the explicit orders of her war chief. If you liked Sylvanas before Teldrassil, but disliked her after, why? Why were you okay with the stuff she's been doing since Cataclysm, but not now? Then there's the stupidity question. If you believe that burning the tree was an unrealistically bad military decision, then honestly don't research any battle or war that's ever happened in real life, because they are littered with bad calls that'll upset you. And if you think someone making a bad decision is bad narrative, then please don't read any book or play ever, because most great literature in the history of mankind is based around the main characters making bad or tragic choices. If you think it's unrealistic that Horde druids would take part in this at all, well, you're right, but ask yourself, how many Horde druids are there in Darkshore? Because as far as I can tell, there are none, because Sylvanas sent them all to Silithus to keep tabs on the sword. I wonder why she did that. And if you are a Horde character who feels conflicted and helpless about the things the game has forced you to do for the last 10 whole quests, then good. That's not a mistake. That's clearly how Blizzard want you to feel, because they are telling a story with your character as much as with Sylvanas or Anduin. They want to take you on a journey, and hi, welcome to the very start point of that journey. We said all this on Tuesday when the cinematic hit, and that's even more obvious now because of all of the other things that have given us hindsight that we're definitely not talking about right now. This is why I don't buy the whole Sylvanas as Garrosh 2.0 thing either, because apart from the fact that, you know, she's obviously not going to be, there is one very important difference between Sylvanas and Garrosh. We as players knew before Mists of Pandaria even started that Garrosh Hellscream would be the final boss of that expansion. So everything that happened in that story was coloured by that knowledge. As a Horde player, you weren't personally affected too much by the shitty things that he did, because you knew that at the end, he would lose. The Horde would overthrow him and find redemption in that. But this time, there are no promises. Horde players don't know that anything will make this right. And just as importantly, Alliance players don't know that Sylvanas will lose. And that creates a whole different atmosphere. One that you can already see in the very panicked reactions to the narrative among the player base. And I personally find that incredibly interesting. It makes me especially engaged with the Horde side of the story. And in my opinion, that's actually pretty good writing. There's also the fact that honestly, even though I'm totally against her actions, all of this has made me like Sylvanas more, because actually just having her stand up and own it and shout "Burn it!" is a lot more satisfying to me than some wishy-washing, oh, the fighting accidentally set some leaves on fire and there was a fire, or Shara came out of literally nowhere and did it for lols bullshit. That's my opinion, of course. You almost certainly have your own. But whatever your opinion was on Tuesday night might well have changed slightly by what happened after Sylvanas' Warbringer went live, because we knew that there would be more story hot on the heels of War of Thorns, and we knew it would help fill the gaps.
Next in the story timeline, at least, are the 2 novellas that come with the physical collector's edition of Battle for Azeroth. These will be free for everyone to read online at some point, but so far only a select few people are in possession of their big blue box and have had the chance to read through Good War, and Elegy. But luckily for us, one of those people just so happens to be Perculia at WoWHead, who, along with Novel, has written a really interesting summary analysis of the 2 stories. Because not only is this book liberally strewn with beautiful and evocatively old-school art on every page, but the events themselves shed more light on the motivations of the main Horde players during the events of the War of Thorns. And of course it's that age-old question, how much of this stuff should be in-game versus how much should be separate media? Well, in this case, I think the answer is pretty obvious. There's no actual plot that happens in these novellas that isn't played out in-game. It's just putting a little more meat on the bones, and I think that's perfect. You don't really want 70-odd pages of character motivations and inner monologue crowbarred into the pre-patch quest text or in-game cutscenes, do you? That would obviously suck. And since these novellas are going to be free for anyone to experience, there's no barrier to anyone enjoying this lore on their own terms. So what new things do the stories tell us? Well, obviously, WoWHead's article goes into much more depth than we can here, and obviously we've linked it below, but really, not much. Sylvanas is a little bit more candid in her reasons for war, but it's nothing she doesn't make clear at the beginning of the pre-patch questline. She wants to basically just get rid of the Nightelves because Azeroth is going to change everything, and we need to be ready for that. She also talks about the intention that capturing Darnassus will sow discord and division in the Alliance races, but in practice this isn't too different from the talk of destroying morale in hope that we get in Warbringer. Rather interestingly, we do learn that Bane hasn't been told about the plan to attack Teldrassil by Sylvanas or Saurfang, and maybe even more interestingly, he kind of knows anyway. And Saurfang himself gets a lot more time focusing on his reaction to the attack in general, and the burning of the tree in particular. Basically, he doesn't like it. He screams for them to stop firing, that this is not their way, that this is not what he signed up for, and then in the aftermath, he stands on the shore for hours looking at the burnt-out husk of Teldrassil, lost in regret. This is great flavor for Saurfang, but again, it's not like the game doesn't make it clear that he feels pretty bad about the whole situation. If you can listen to
Come, champion. We must follow our war chief to victory.
And convince yourself that Saurfang is wearing an I love Sylvanas and I'm very proud of the Horde right now t-shirt under his armor, then I kind of think that's on you. My favorite bit that WoWHead revealed, though, concerns the controversial moment when Sylvanas leaves Saurfang to kill Malfurion. In-game, there's a lot of room for conjecture here. Tally said he thought that Sylvanas was purposely trying to make Saurfang complicit in something she knew he didn't believe in, but a good war makes the moment a bit clearer. Malfurion has already defeated the Orc warlord in single combat before this point in the novella, and is on the verge of seeing off Sylvanas when Saurfang intervenes. When Sylvanas says, "This was your victory, you have earned this honor," I actually believe that she thinks she's showing Saurfang a kindness here. He's just saved her life, and in return she gives him the chance to atone for the fight he lost earlier by landing the killing blow. And beyond that, she's putting trust in her best general to follow orders. It really doesn't seem so unreasonable to me at all. We've been assured there's also a lot more action from the point of view of Nightelves and their defense of their city too, which we cannot wait to get our hands on. Our collector's edition is coming via Amazon, so be sure to join us sometime in November when we get it, and we'll talk about this some more. There was so much stuff this week that we won't get a chance to talk about, or which landed as we were making this video, that we've had to invent this new maybe we'll never do it again section, just to let you know they even happened. Like the new call to arms feature on Battle.net, where you can create action posed screenshots with 3 of your in-game characters, or actually 3 of any in-game characters, as long as you know their name and server. Miss that old guildie that blocked you for spamming Thunder Fury memes in chat? Get your revenge by posting a picture of you and them all over your social media. They won't see it though, seriously, you are quite thoroughly blocked. Or how about the new Darkmoon Fair toy? It's a bag of popcorn that you can tuck into the next time there's big drama. Like when Anduin goes full Dreadlord, or, you know, anytime Taliesin talks to pretty much anyone on Twitter. Or how about my new favorite thing in game? The hashtag No Honor No Pauldrons campaign, where Horde characters are hiding their shoulder pads as a show of defiance against the actions of their war chief and solidarity with Saurfang. The hashtag is all over Twitter, and it's a great example of the way BFA's story is managing to fuel some really fun community involvement. But I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, but Evitel, why would you hide your shoulder pads in solidarity with Saurfang? I mean, I know why. It's because Saurfang is awesome, obviously, but isn't he famous for having really big shoulder pads? Okay, one really big shoulder pad? Well, yes, that's a good question. I'm glad you asked. Maybe this next section with Taliesin can explain it more.
And so, to Old Soldier, the surprise, fully rendered cinematic that hit on Thursday or Friday, depending on where in the world you are. It's been clear for a while now that Saurfang was going to be one of the most interesting characters in BFA, but I don't think anyone expected this, because this cinematic is exquisite. Let's look at it in more depth. I mean, firstly, there is the cover or thumbnail art, which is a clear nod to the cover of Warcraft 3, Reign of Chaos, an adventure which, by the way, ends in the destruction of a world tree. The destruction of a world tree being where this one starts. And Saurfang took part in that Warcraft 3 campaign, just like he did the events of the first and second wars before that, because this film is called Old Soldier for a reason. Saurfang has so far served under 6 different Horde war chiefs. I don't count those all. And we are given a glimpse back into his past at the very start of this cinematic, in a frame that longtime players will recognise instantly as Saurfang cradling the body of his son, Garrosh, after recovering it from Icecrown Citadel during Wrath of the Lich King. What must be a regular and contemplative memory for him is interrupted quite violently by the much more recent sights and sounds of the invasion of Darkshore and the burning of the innocents at Teldrassil. This shows that these events are something that Saurfang can't chase from his mind. They hijack every other thought that he has. He's clearly haunted by this, and also establishes right at the beginning the contrasting images of fire and ice that recur throughout this film as well. But then we get into this cinematic proper, and the amazing thing about this entire piece is how quiet it is. In-game cinematics, by their very nature, usually come at the climax of some series of action, so are often very fast-paced or epic feeling. Expansion cinematics, which this most resembles, are all about getting you pumped for a whole new product, so they're usually pretty bombastic too. And I know that I'm not alone in wishing in the past that they'd been able to just take a step back for some smaller stories. In fact, I remember when the Legion cinematic came out, one of the devs said that the original concept was to have it not be about the King of Stormwind writing to his son, but normal soldiers on the Horde and Alliance writing letters home as they travelled to face the Legion on Broken Shore, which I thought sounded amazing. I feel like this is maybe something that evolved out of that idea. And that whole feeling is encapsulated and established in this opening image and the stillness of the dawn. The dawn of battle, of course, but as we'll see, of other things too. There's a brilliant speech in Shakespeare's Henry V where the narrator is describing a scene just like this before the start of the Battle of Agincourt. Now entertain conjecture of a time where creeping murmur and the pouring dark fills the wide vessel of the universe. From camp to camp, through the foul womb of night, the hum of either army stilly sounds. The poor condemned English, like sacrifices, by their watchful fires, sit patiently and inly ruminate the morning's danger. And their gesture sad, investing lank lean cheeks and war-worn cloaks, presenteth them unto the gazing moon so many horrid ghosts. And the amazing light and sound design of this scene really capture that feeling for me. Those distant voices floating on the mist of dawn, the almost dreamlike quality of the sunlight just creeping into being. And as we discover Saurfang here, he is slowly removing the larger parts of his armour when the camera pans round to reveal none other than Zappy Boy himself. Now, okay, this is actually really special. Ever since this troll shaman appeared in the Battle for Azeroth cinematic and zapped Greymane, he has been a celebrated figure in the WoW community. We even made a mock charity campaign to hashtag Save Zappy Boy when he was removed from the loading screen of the Seething Shore. It was a joke, but it came from a place of genuine love, and the brilliant thing is, production on Old Soldier would have started almost a year ago, before any of that began. How hard must it have been for the team working on this film to not respond to any of that stuff. When the community were crying out for more Zappy Boy, how difficult must it have been for them to keep quiet about this? My hat goes off to you, Blizzard. It really does. And Zappy Boy, real name Zekhan, though it's not mentioned in this cinematic, is so important for what he represents. He's young, he's fresh-faced and idealistic, he's never seen battle, and he clearly hero worships Saurfang. But we're getting ahead of ourselves. Zekhan is on the scene for all of 10 seconds before he's zapping the fire alight, and undeterred from Saurfang's rather blatant ignoring of him, looks out to the gathering Alliance war machine and asks,
"How many do you think?"
And when Saurfang replies,
Too many.
he's referring to the Alliance soldiers, of course, but also still thinking about the too many innocent lives that have already been lost in this war so far. And this totally epic shot of Sylvanas, almost silhouetted by the burning tree, and these really quite graphic and disturbing Night Elf hands reaching up pathetically, add to the hellish landscape that the glow of the flames already creates. And apart from looking really awesome, this gives us a chance to see Saurfang's reaction to the burning of the tree that we just didn't get in game, where he's genuinely angry with Sylvanas. And as if we hadn't guessed before, he says there was no honour from the Horde's action in Darkshore.
They will come for us now. All of them!
Oh look, and here they are. All of them. And as Saurfang continues to slowly remove his battle armour, there's some really lovely dialogue here, which we are just not used to in cinematics like this. We sometimes get close to it in the in-game cutscenes, but this right here, this is what the WoW Netflix series would look like. And it looks good. Zekhan talks about the stories his father used to tell him about how awesome Saurfang was in the Third War. He even makes a reference to how great Saurfang is at Cleave.
He told me stories. How you could cut down 10 enemies with a single blow.
Which I think is brilliant. A cute little nod to the jokes that used to go around Baron's chat about him, like Saurfang can cleave Azeroth and hit Outland, or they say that under his beard is no chin, only another cleave. And all of this time, Zekhan is desperately trying to connect to his hero, and when he starts talking about honour, this really stings Saurfang, because as far as he's concerned, there is no honour in the Horde anymore, and he lashes out, throwing his armour to the ground.
If I do fall, may it be with honor in glorious command.
There will be no glory today.
And casting into the fire, sadly, this Horde necklace. And once again, this image of fire switches to an image of ice, as we're back with Garrosh in Northrend. Garrosh, don't forget, who died heroically charging the Lich King, a character who both of the Warbringer animations so far have referenced, and who many players suspect Sylvanas will be following in the footsteps of. Garrosh then got raised as a Death Knight and killed by you in Icecrown Citadel before Saurfang was allowed to reclaim his body. But the important thing is, Garrosh died with honour, fighting against evil for the Horde. A Horde that Saurfang no longer believes in. In fact, far from fighting against evil, Saurfang suspects that if he does die in the morning, it will be for a cause that he no longer fully truly believes in. You either die a hero, or you live long enough to become the baddie, you know? And so from the very ashes of the fire that he's burning his son's Horde pendant on, he applies war markings to his face. And when Zekhan asks what he's doing, he says,
Claiming what is mine.
An honourable death, what has been denied him all of these years while others around him perished. So Saurfang is making his way towards the Alliance camp, alone, armourless, essentially just to cause shit and die fighting insurmountable odds, because that, to him, is more honourable than dying in the name of what the Horde is now. A feeling that I'm sure at least some Horde players have been able to relate to this week. Another feeling you'll probably recognise is when an elemental shaman offers to group up, you say, do you know what, I'll just solo it, it'll be fine, that'll just be easier. Little elemental shaman joke there. Now obviously the flaw in this plan is that in reality, I think Saurfang could probably take the Alliance army, and if they saw him coming, they'd almost certainly start to retreat. But for the sake of the story, let's suspend our disbelief and pretend that he would in fact die. This shot of the Alliance siege towers, looking absolutely gargantuan by the way, is stunning. And then follows this exchange between the two as Zekhan follows Saurfang on his last walk, removing his own armour as they go and refusing to leave the old orc to face his death alone. Zekhan's father, the one who told him about Saurfang in the first place, is dead, and
The Horde. It's all we have.
Saurfang takes this as being a reference to his own dead son and gets angry, starts pushing Zekhan around, and then you get this.
Oh, give up, boy.
Like you?
And we are on the brink of a very important realization here. A horn sounds, dawn breaks, the Horde banner is raised into actual heavenly light appearing through the darkness. Zekhan, the son without a father, hands Dranosh's pendant back to the father without a son. And it's in this moment that we make the same realization that Saurfang does. Because this whole time, in the lead up to BFA and all of those things that Sylvanas has been doing, we've all thought the same thing. If there is hope, it's with Saurfang, it's with the old guards, the ones who remember the old Horde, who still believe in honour. But we were wrong, and in this moment, Saurfang realises it too. Because the true heart of the Horde doesn't just beat in the old soldiers like him and Eitrig, it beats in the chests of the young too. It never died, it never went anywhere, because here it is. Zekhan, Zappy Boy, is the Horde that Saurfang thought didn't exist anymore. Honour, glory, bravery to stand up for what's right. And Saurfang double taps Zekhan's chest the same way he did his own son, because yes, he sees his own son in this young troll. And this young troll has put him back on the right path. Zappy Boy, he protect, he attack, he brings Saurfang back. Because now Saurfang realises there is hope after all, and this Horde, this family, is worth fighting for, even if it's hidden away under something else right now. And as they look at each other and smile and start running back to Lordaeron to get their armour on, ready for the battle in maybe my favourite 15 seconds of WoW cinematic history, he turns and he soaks it all in. It's a new dawn for Saurfang, and maybe, who knows, for the Horde too. This isn't just a masterfully created and realised piece of filmmaking, it's a lifeline, because in an expansion about a faction war, it's not just Azeroth that you're battling for, it's also for the very identity of your faction. One way or another, the Horde will be redefined in BFA. The question is, will it be in the image of the Banshee Queen and her ruthless strength, or in the image of Zekhan? Could this even be the first proper appearance for a new super important character? Zekhan is clearly very charismatic and basically good. Is this the beginning of a character arc like the one Yrel was never allowed to properly have? One that could end with a new leader of the Darkspears, or even the Horde itself? Well, WoWHead have found no NPCs in the BFA files called Zekhan, so it seems unlikely, but for now at least, the Zappy Boy dream is truly alive, and I hope that at the very least, we get to see the old soldier and the boy interact together again at some point. Okay, at the very least, I hope he survives the Battle of Lordaeron. Please, God, let him survive the Battle of Lordaeron. Wow, what a stupidly long episode that was.
It's so long.
That was a marathon and a sprint. Sorry, because it was also pretty much just me this episode because of the whole analysis of the Saurfang short and stuff like that. And we didn't even get a chance to talk about everything because there was the new mounts that we got from end of the War of Thorns Part 2. What did you think of that?
I thought it was really harrowing and intense.
Yeah.
Especially that last bit when I'm running around in the flames in Darnassus, where I remember, you know, my low-level night elf, like, buying armor for the first time.
Oh, you bought armor for the first time?
Yeah.
What a noob you were.
Yeah.
You're like, I'm going to have to buy stuff.
Yeah. And, you know, seeing, like, the leather armor vendor just cowering.
Yeah.
And oh my god. And I didn't save the lightsaber vendors.
Oh, man.
That was literally when it was like the time was ticking down and I was like, the lightsaber vendor.
I know, because that's the thing, like, you know who these characters are a lot
and
of them.
the triads.
Like, yeah, and you're having to, like, choose. There's been so much to talk about this week.
Oh, God.
That actually just talking about what happens next week, we didn't even get to, because, of course, next week is the battle for Lordaeron, the battle for Undercity.
Oh, God, yeah.
If you didn't know about that, that's not a spoiler, because if you did War of Thorns Part 2, and you've got your mount at the end, and you've got your Undercity Plague Bat, and it says, one of the last Plague Bats to leave the Undercity in the Siege of Lordaeron, or Battle for Undercity, and you're like,
The what?
The battle for what?
The what?
And
No one reads that flavor text. So
and Blizzard like,
know.
what? I don't know what you're talking about. Oh, ignore that. I don't even know what that is. Doesn't matter. And that's really funny because you just know when these mounts are first planned, you just know they intended to give the Hippogriff to Alliance players after the Teldrassil bit, and they intended to give the Plague Bat to Horde players after the Lordaeron bit, the Undercity bit. And then someone one day in a meeting went, guys, you know how you can only play the Battle of Lordaeron in the actual pre-patch if you've pre-ordered the game? That means loads of people aren't going to get their mount. That's fine if you're okay with getting that shit. Maybe they thought, oh, can we cope with that shit? And then they looked at the Sylvanas cinematic.
And they're like, we cannot cope with this shit.
And they're like, we can't cope with this shit. Okay, no, we've got enough shit coming our way anyway. And actually, do you know what? This pre-patch, I know some people are saying it feels really sparse and that there's not much going on, but for me it feels like there's loads going on. Because there's like literal bombardment of stories from all different sources and things like that, like a surprise cinematic.
Yeah.
That's the shit that they'd never done before that they were talking about in that panel.
But I think it's great, and I'm really enjoying seeing all these little bits of story coming from different sources. I get how some people might, be like, well, I want it all in the game, but
one thing it's really doing as well is it's really getting the whole Alliance Horde thing going.
Oh,
which
yeah.
is definitely one of the intentions as well. Like, every single time when we're online now, you go to Group Finder and there's any number of groups on like the Alliance side going, let's go kill Sylvanas,
which we did a couple days ago.
Exactly, it's brilliant. And you get together and
I know not.
I know we've all done that in game before, but it just felt good to be doing it now.
Yeah.
Like straight after that cinematic.
And now it's over.
It felt really, really good. And now, we don't need BFA anymore.
Yeah.
It's over. Like, justice has been served. GG.
You know what? I am enjoying it so much that I'm keeping Warmode on and I'm getting ganked everywhere, but I feel like it's my duty, and it feels responsible.
Warmode is brilliant. One of the reasons we went to Orgrimmar to kill Sylvanas, actually, because we just went to Stormwind, and like the Horde were there en masse on the Mage Tower in Stormwind, just killing anyone that zoned in.
And we were like, oh man.
It was brilliant, and it took like 20
sleeves.
minutes to get rid of them.
Yeah.
It was awesome. Dudes,
really
like if you are not doing like organised Warmode stuff in this pre-patch,
get on it.
Even if you're not someone who PvPs at all, like us, do it. It's great. Go out there and gank some noobs. No, you're the noob. Kill some oldies.
Yeah, and then get ganked.
And then get ganked. But you won't mind. It's good fun. Give a shit. Thank you for joining us today. If you enjoyed this episode, though, don't thank us. Thank our patrons who give their actual real-life money to help these videos happen.
They do.
Next episode, when you see our snazzy new backdrop.
Oh!
Because, I have to get rid of the Suramar one now. Argus in the Sky one.
It is time.
I'll be sad to say goodbye to it, but it's definitely time.
What's the backdrop gonna be?
I literally haven't decided yet. If you didn't like it, downvote the shit out of it. Remember, my name is Bellular. I know we joke about Bellular, right? And like his video output, but I'm not even joking. He's released a video every single day this week.
Wow, man.
Like sometimes two. Man is terrifying.
I admire that. Admire and fear.
For me, Taliesin.
And me, Evitel.
Until next time, cheerio.